In 1926, when abortion was illegal, Anna probably knew that she was taking a bit of a risk when she went to a midwife for a criminal abortion. In 1971, in New York, with abortion safe and legal, Roseanne probably had no reason to suspect that her doctor was going to use a dangerous, antiquated abortion method that would end her life. This is Christina with the Sisyphean Journal, and today is February 27th. Hi there. It's February 27th, and we're looking primarily at two deaths right now. The deaths where I found abortions where the anniversary date is February 27th, but I also want to talk a little bit more about the context because I don't have a whole lot of information specifically about the women in these cases. The older one is an illegal one, and that was in Chicago in 1926. Now, it's pretty easy to find historic abortion deaths in Chicago for a couple of reasons. One is that I can't remember what university off the top of my head, but they created the HOMICIDE in Chicago interactive database that you can go to. And you can just plug abortion in there, and it'll bring up cases where there was an investigation of a homicide by abortion. And that's something to keep in mind. The abortion lobby wants to pretend that, oh, before abortion was legal, it was really easy to hide abortion deaths, therefore they're really hard to count. They were murder. They were murder, and if the police wound up having reason to believe you knew about it, you were an accessory after the fact. You got in a lot of trouble if there was a suspicious death of a woman of childbearing age and you did not call attention to it. And you'll see case after case where the coroner called attention to it, a clerk at the office where the death certificate was brought, a neighbor, a doctor, just lots of people, because if you knew about it and you said nothing, you were an accessory to murder, and people did not want to be an accessory to murder. So it wasn't like you just, oh, she died of typhoid fever. No, it wasn't that easy. I'm not saying that that never happened and that couldn't be done. I'm just saying that it wasn't as easy to get away with it as the abortion lobby wants you to believe. Now, in Chicago, oh yeah, another reason that they're easy to find in Chicago is that the newspapers cover them very frequently. So if you subscribe to a newspaper site and you plug in abortions, you can find a ton of them. And also, there were a lot of court cases. So if you go onto a legal website and you look for abortions, you'll find a lot of cases in Chicago. So that's why I have so many in Chicago. And pretty much it was doctors and midwives. It was very unusual for one of these deaths to be due to an abortion perpetrated by somebody other than a doctor or a midwife. And one of those examples, again, 1926, a young woman named Anna had an abortion performed by one of those midwives, Teresa Struhala. And according to the Homicide in Chicago Interactive Database, the abortion was performed in Anna's home, and she died there that day. That can be a little bit iffy, but she did die around that time. And Struhala was indicted for felony murder. Now we can jump ahead to New York. Safe and legal. Woohoo! Right. This is 1971. And Life Dynamics identified this woman by the pseudonym Roseanne, so I'll use that to avoid confusion. She was in the second trimester of pregnancy when she went for a safe legal abortion, as was permitted under the New York abortion law. And if you look at my video, the last time New York celebrated, I'll put a link below. That's how elated New York legislators are every time they roll out the red carpet to abortionists, and women suffer for that. Roseanne was 37 years old, had 4 children, and her doctor chose the saline abortion method, and I'll include a link below to tell you a little bit more about that. Doctors knew it was very dangerous, but they did it anyway. So Roseanne was infused with the saline for the abortion, and 2 days later she started vomiting and having seizures, which can be expected. If you watch the video about saline abortion, you'll understand that. But she started vomiting and having seizures, and she aspirated some of that vomit. That gave her pneumonia, and she died with pneumonia and anoxic brain damage. And I just want to go over a little bit some of the women, the circumstances after New York legalized. If you look at the number of deaths per year, that did not change. It was legal abortion deaths substituting for illegal abortion deaths, and the women were a lot less wary. If the woman's going for a criminal abortion, she knows that this person isn't necessarily trustworthy. Whereas the abortion lobby wants everybody to believe that once abortion was legalized, all the bad people just went away, or the state just the state licensed it and came in and looked at everything very carefully. And we can see with the Kermit Gosnell case, no, that's not the case. So I'm just going to go over some of these cases. In July of 1970, which is right after the law went into effect, a woman named Judy had cardiac arrest during an abortion. Again in July, a woman named Carmen, the saline intended to kill the fetus was injected directly into her bloodstream and killed her. Again in July of 1970, a young woman named Barbara, a doctor had recommended an abortion because she had sickle cell disease, and the abortion itself triggered a sickle cell crisis that killed her. A woman, I give the pseudonym Linda. This is in September of 1970. She traveled from Indiana to New York with an abortion. They poked a hole in her uterus and sent her home, and she died after she got back to Indiana. A young woman named Maria in October of 1970, the fetus was shoved through her uterus into her pelvic cavity, and when the doctor didn't see any fetal parts, she assumed that Maria hadn't been pregnant and sent her home, so of course she died. A woman with the pseudonym Kimberly in December of 70 suffered cardiac arrest during her abortion. January of 71, pseudonym Amy, she had a massive pulmonary embolism, which meant that stuff that wasn't supposed to be in her bloodstream got into her lungs and killed her. Also in January 71, a woman pseudonym Andrea died of an overwhelming infection. I don't know why there's a gap between January of 71 and April of 71. I think it's just nobody noticed because they're coming a little bit too relentlessly for this to be all of them. But in April of 71, a young woman pseudonym Sandra, she had an abortion, and they did a pathology examination and found out they hadn't gotten anything out of her uterus. There had been no embryo or fetus there, and nobody told her. And in grief over the abortion, she committed suicide. May of 71, a woman pseudonym Anita was injected with saline for an outpatient abortion. Again, the doctors knew it was dangerous to do it even in a hospital. But thanks to legalization, they weren't afraid of getting in trouble. So they just inject the woman with saline and send her home. And in Anita's case, they sent her home and she bled to death. In June of 71, a woman from Ypsilanti, Michigan, Margaret, went to New York to have an abortion performed by a carpetbagging Ypsilanti abortionist who'd gone there to take advantage of legalization. And he went in vaginally, cut a hole in her vagina, in her uterus to take the fetus out, and he didn't sew the hole shut, and she bled to death. Also in June of 1971, a woman with the pseudonym Annie went into cardiac arrest during the anesthesia. In July of 71, a woman pseudonym Audrey went into cardiac arrest during her abortion. In August of 71, a woman pseudonym Vicky died of a post-abortion infection. Again, in August of 71, a woman pseudonym April was injected with saline for an outpatient abortion. Again, they knew they weren't supposed to be doing these. Doctors knew better, but she went into shock and died. As far as I can tell, she went into shock on site. She didn't even make it home. September of 71, a woman named Barbara was injected with saline for an abortion and went into cardiac arrest. October of 71, a woman pseudonym Tammy had a massive post-abortion infection. In October of 71, a woman named Carol went to the same abortionist that had killed Margaret, and she also suffered the same fate Margaret did. In December of 71, a woman pseudonym Beth went in for a saline abortion. Drive this home. They knew it was dangerous and they were doing it anyway. And they injected the saline accidentally directly into her bloodstream. In March of 72, a woman pseudonym Connie went into cardiac arrest during her abortion. In April of 72, a woman pseudonym Julie had holes torn in her uterus and bowel and died as a result of that. In May of 72, a woman pseudonym Roxanne was given an overdose of sedatives for her abortion and died, which is something that continues to happen. And also in May of 1972, a woman pseudonym Danielle had air somehow injected into her bloodstream. I'm not sure how that got there. So if you look at the things these doctors were doing, the abortion lobby told us that you could trust the doctors to always be the stalwart promoters of safe and legal abortion. And no, this guy was doing hysterotomies in his office. These guys were injecting women with saline and sending them home. They could not be trusted. And also the state noticed this stuff was going on and just said, oh, well, yeah, kind of sucks, and wrote it up. So keep those in mind when you believe that the things we have in place that are supposed to protect women really do.